Welcome to Travel with Smiley. We're here in Oakland, California on a very special tour of the USS Hornet. The Hornet was made famous by the Doolittle raid on Tokyo in 1942 after Pearl Harbor was attacked. This will be my first tour of an aircraft carrier. The only other time that I was on board one was on the hangar deck of the USS Coral Sea that my cousin was stationed on during the Vietnam War. Let's go on board and look at this powerful, famous ship from the World War II era. Was it the Hornet before this one that launched the Doolittle raid on Tokyo in 1942?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the, and it was only a year and 6 days old when it was sunk.
Mm-hmm.
That was CV-8. Now there have been 8 Hornets in the history of this country, but only 2 of those Hornets were modern day aircraft carriers. That was the one you're speaking about, 8, and the 12. Before that, they were sailing ships. Starting in 1775, when we were beginning to think about our nation and its foundation and the fact that we needed to protect our nation, it made sure that in 1775 we had a Hornet. But there were 8 of them. Now, there will never be another ship in the United States Navy called the Hornet, ever. And the reason for that is the record on this battle board is so wonderful. And then the Navy itself says that there aren't 2 boards like that in the Navy. So the original board is not that one. This is a copy of that original board. The original board is in Pensacola, Florida, in the Navy Museum. The Navy's comment was, when they took it off at the ending of World War II, that that was too important a record and an artifact of the nation that it represented to be lost, and they were not going to let it happen. They would take it off. And so immediately after the war was over, they came and got the original board. Now, that original board is not as pretty as this one. It's not clean, it's soiled and dirty, because the young men that were in here fighting a war and winning a war for us against the Japanese would get on a ladder and get up there, and they would begin to mark it up. They'd take out a couple of submarines, or a submarine, or a supply ship, or maybe 9 or 10 planes of the enemy, or a battleship, of whatever kind. They would make a notation on that. They got up there on the ladder that was always there, and they would mark up that board.
We're on board the hangar deck of the Hornet, and we're going to take a look at one of the elevators that took the aircraft up to the flight deck. This elevator's on the stern of the Hornet. It's 44 feet wide and 58 feet long. The platform weight of these elevators is 142,000 pounds. The elevator would be lowered from the flight deck down here to the hangar deck. It could carry up to 46,000 pounds aircraft, personnel, and equipment. It took 45 seconds for it to go up and down. This is a torpedo bomber, just like the one President Bush flew in World War II and was shot down bombing a Japanese target. Here's what an actual ready room briefing looked like prior to a mission. It's one of the large bathrooms on board. Here are the sleep quarters for the Marine detachment on board that guarded the ship. We're on the hangar deck looking up at the island on the flight deck from an elevator that would take the aircraft up to the flight deck. It's a tug used to pull aircraft around on the hangar deck. This is an F-18 Hornet, just like the ones that the Blue Angels fly, and it has ordnance actually loaded up on board under the wings. Let's go take a look at the cockpit. So where the pilot sat in the front seat, and the XO, the the ordnance officer in the back seat of the F-18 Hornet. Some different helicopters and aircraft on the hangar deck. And there you can see the quarantine trailer that the astronauts after their moon missions had to go in. And there's the Apollo space capsule on board. The USS Hornet recovered some of the Apollo space capsules after moon missions. And there's a Russian space capsule, and the blue one on the left is a Mercury two-man space capsule. The Apollo held 3 astronauts for the moon missions. See how the rotor blades could fold together for storage on the hangar deck on the USS Hornet. This is the mobile quarantine facility for astronauts after a moon mission. Before a man had first set foot on the moon, it was speculated that they might return with an exotic virus that could harm the Earth's inhabitants. In preparation for the Apollo missions, NASA decided to quarantine astronauts, equipment, and lunar samples returning from the moon's surface for 21 days. This moon rock sample was brought back by Apollo 16. When you look at a full moon in the night sky, Apollo 16 landed in the bright Highlands region that is very nearly dead center. This sample has been found to be 3.9 billion years old, older than 99.99% of all the Earth's surface rocks. President Richard Nixon with an Apollo crew inside the quarantine trailer. You can see how the wing on this twin-engine turboprop folds up for storage on the hangar deck. The Sikorsky H-34 could be used to pick up the Mercury space capsule and deposit it on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier.
Anyway, we're going to go down and see the engine room, and we'll do a little bit of abbreviated tour so you'll have time to do the flight deck afterwards. We'll do the engine room, we'll eliminate some of the other spaces that are included in the tour normally. So just watch your step going up and down the ladder so that you don't hit your head when you go down through the hatches, and watch where you're going, because some of these ladders are kind of steep, and if you don't, you can trip.
The Hornet had 4 ready rooms on board to handle the 5 squadrons planning their missions. The pilots would sit in here and listen to the commander talking about the mission of the day. Thanks for joining us today on Travel with Smiley on this tour of the USS Hornet CV-12, which was a ship commissioned after the CV-8 Hornet that did the Doolittle raid mission was sunk in World War II. This was an exciting tour to take, and it was only about 20 miles from the San Francisco airport, so come on out here to California and check out the history on board the Hornet. And remember, when you're traveling, to travel safe, travel fun, travel America. Carry on. See you next time on Travel with Smiley. You never know where we'll be.